top story this hour, army charging forward to replicate victories to the central part. And some international media continue willfully misinforming audiences about Ethiopia. A very warm welcome to Addis News Hour. I'm Solomon Danye. Thanks for joining me. The Commander-in-Chief of the National Army, Abiy Ahmed, announces that the army is in full capacity and readiness to replicate victories gained in eastern and western fronts to the central part of the country. More towns captured by the invading terrorists will be liberated soon, he said, urging the people to stand in harmony to pass a prosperous and sovereign nation to the coming generation. Kasan Jani tells us more.
The Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed held a meeting with the military on a third key front. The victory achieved in the east and west will be repeated in the interior, he said.
The enemy has now no moral and valor. They have been crumbled and are frustrating. Ethiopia will never lose any battle to any enemy. We are not going to worry about this bandit group.
The Prime Minister announced that in recent operations, more towns captured by the invading terrorists would be liberated and called on the entire public to be organized, being hand in glove more than ever. According to the Premier, who is leading a front, invading terrorists could not bring anything out, with the public and the community working together.
The enemy force is already destroyed and disintegrated. The only option for the enemy is to return the property they have looted and to surrender. The people in the respective areas should organize themselves and make sure the enemy won't escape with the looted property. If the remaining fighters of TPLF have surrendered, the army and government will provide them with the necessary care. Let our unity be maintained. Let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap. Let's hand over the country to our children together with a sovereignty safeguarded and intact.
He said it is Ethiopians' heroic tradition to take care of captives when they surrender, calling for immediate reestablishment of administrations in areas liberated from the TPLF.
This area is called the Gollo, which is our third critical front. As noted so far, we have controlled various areas in the east. This enormous expansion work is underway in Sakota and Woldia on Gashana front. Within the Gollo front, we will control the Sebati and Kombolcha and other cities through the operations today and tomorrow. Now the enemy's option is to surrender and deliver what was stolen.
The Commander-in-Chief of the National Army underscored that the military is now at the highest moral and gallantry status, extending gratitude to the public for their support.
Has officially called on Ethiopians and friends of Ethiopians all over the world to join the Great Ethiopian Homecoming Challenge. Ethiopians and friends of Ethiopia around the world join the Great Ethiopia Homecoming 1 million by January 7, 2022, Abiy tweeted. As the Ethiopian Christmas holiday is upon us, Ethiopians in the diaspora have been challenged to come home for Christmas, he said. Meanwhile, 1 million Ethiopians in the diaspora are challenged to come to their home country during Christmas so as to show their solidarity with their people. The new challenge posed by the government is aimed at disproving the wrong narrative that Ethiopia is on the brink of collapse by solidifying unity among Ethiopians at home and in the diaspora. The country will also generate a considerable amount of foreign currency from its own citizens. We have more on this story.
No more! No more! No more! No more!
Ethiopians at home and abroad are busy clearing things up to protect their nation from a coordinated propaganda warfare apart from their fight in the battlefield. Millions of Ethiopians in the diaspora took the streets of cities in America, Canada, Australia, UK and plenty of others to say no to foreign interference.
No more! No more! No more! No more intervention! No more! No more terrorism! No more terrorism!
The successful movement introduced by Ethio-American journalist Hermela Regawi is gaining momentum worldwide, drawing in fellow Africans and friends of Ethiopia to say enough is enough for foreign meddling into the internal affairs of nations to impoverish them. Grateful for what they are doing to voice Ethiopia's concern, the government invited 1 million Ethiopians in the diaspora to come home during Christmas, thereby helping their country earn foreign currency and show solidarity with their people fighting the actual war.
And this is to continue raising your voices in a united manner as you have done so. There is a time and a place for ideological differences and opposition, and not at this point in time when the existence of your country is being tested by forces far and near. As the Ethiopian Christmas holiday is upon us, Ethiopians in the diaspora are being challenged to come home for Christmas. 1 million diaspora by January 7th, 2022.
The hashtag No More movement Ethiopians started is reverberating across the world, sending shockwaves to giant international media platforms that bent on backing the TPLF. Their integrated campaign to fabricate unsubstantiated news stories is now growing into jamming and silencing Ethiopian voices in social media platforms like Twitter.
On social media, particularly, we have reason to believe that Twitter is targeting and suspending pro-Ethiopia voices that are raising awareness about the TPLF's atrocities and its lies. We have shared this with their policy team that we believe Twitter has been infiltrated by TPLF sympathizers in the same manner that many democratic institutions and corporate spaces have also been infiltrated to provide a TPLF narrative. On some mainstream Western media, we have, of course, seen the anti-Ethiopian government perspective dominate. Again, we have seen this trend before in many countries where media was used to effectively demonize governments and their leaders in order to facilitate regime change, and the same is playing now.
The hashtag No More movement became trending in Africa in particular, initiating the long-extinguished PanAfrican Movement to revive. When Ethiopia says no, Africa says no. It's now time for trending. My colleague Sintayo Tamrat has joined me here in the studio to update us about the trending issues in the past 24 hours. Thank you for joining me, Sintayo.
Thank you, sir.
So what are the issues that have been making headlines in the past 24 hours?
Okay, I've just brought 3 issues, and these are America attempt to bring OLF Shane to the international arena failures, and French families that fled the country are just regretting because Addis Ababa is quite safe. And US policies on Ethiopia, Nigeria and COVID in Africa come under fire in Congress. These are just the 3 points that I'm to update based on the trending.
Let's go through them.
Well, regarding the first issue, America attempt to bring OLF to the international arena fails following the TPLF defeat recently after Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed went to the front line. America started bringing OLF to the international arena by just orchestrating some sort of terror attacks in Addis Ababa, including the attacks on commercial flights, I mean just airplanes, and so on, particularly the Western business and embassies. The US and some Western countries have been just exploiting the media, I mean manipulating the media to as if Addis Ababa is under the siege of the TPLF and OLF Shene, but now the TPLF has already been defeated, and the OLF is just being given some sort of international image. This is attempted by the America just using some media outlets like the radio in Sweden, a particular radio in Sweden, France 24, the BBC, and some other media outlets have been just manipulated by the US to give the OLF Shene to an international image. But this has failed, says some media outlet. And coming to the next point, which is French families that fled Ethiopia due to the security alerts by embassies following the security alerts by the US government, US embassy here in Addis, have been just repeatedly alerting their citizens here in Addis to leave Addis Ababa. And after leaving Addis Ababa, French families told CGTN that Addis Ababa was entirely safe, and they regret leaving Addis because some of them have just good jobs here in Ethiopia, and some French families, for example, have been just paid with Ethiopian currency, and they were just told to leave urgently. But they made no preparation, and that is the main issue they were just bringing. But what they underlined is that, and communicated to the other citizens, foreign nationalists living in Addis, is that Addis Ababa is entirely safe, and what the US and other embassies, including the French embassies, have been saying is completely wrong. This is it. And finally, the US policies on Ethiopia, Nigeria, and COVID-19 in Africa, particularly the vaccination, come under fire in Congress. And the State Department's top Africa official, Molly Fee, faced bipartisan criticism of US policies on an array of fronts this week in her first appearance before Congress since taking office. And Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Molly Fee, got an earful on everything from the conflict in Ethiopia to religious rights in Nigeria to the low vaccination COVID rates on the continent during her appearance Wednesday before the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Africa. She was sworn in late September after sitting in limbo for 5 months because of Republican obstacle. We know that US has been just recently criticized by almost entire African continent politicians and citizens as well for having wrong policy on Africa. If you remember Freeman, who approached the ETV English, said that the US has almost no policy towards Africa. It is a de facto policy. If we say it's policy, it is a de facto policy towards Africa. And even US has no vision of development and so on Africa. So this is not a new thing, in fact.
Thank you for your information. Have a good day.
Thank you so much, Solomon.
Okay.
ለጠላት ያለኝ መልእክት ገብተው መልካም ድሩን የማያውቁ ጦርነቱን የማያውቁ ሰዎች በውር ድንበር እያስፈጁት የትግራይ ወጣት እንደ ቅጠል እየረገፈ ነው። ይህ የትግራይ ወጣት መሸነፉን አውቆ አሁን ባለው ግልጽ ራዕይ በሌለው እቅድ በሌለው መዳረሻውን በማያውቅ የውር ድንበር ጉዞ ድል እንደማይመጣ አውቆ እጁን ለሀገር መከላከያ ሰራዊት፣ ለልዩ ኃይሎች፣ ለሚሊሻ፣ ለህዝቡ ከዛሬ ጀምሮ እንዲሰጥ ያ ማድረግ ካልቻለ በሰሞኑ ያየው አላግባብ የመርገፍ ሁኔታ ይቀጥላል ማለት ነው። ሰው እንዳይሞት ስለሚፈልግ እነዚህ ወጣቶች እጃቸውን ይሰጡ፣ ጦርነቱ እንዳለቀ የዘረፋ ተግባር ባጭር እንደሚቀጭ ተገንዝበው እጃቸውን ይሰጡ። የትግራይ እናቶች ደግሞ እንዲጠይቁ ልጄ የታል እንዲሉ መጠየቅ አለባቸው። ልጆቻቸውን በከንቱ እያረገፈ ለሚቀልድ ኃይል ዝም ማለት ሳይሆን ጠይቀው ልጃቸው የታል ማለት አለባቸው።
This is Addis News Hour. Government Communications Service, in a statement issued yesterday, announced that some international mainstream media has willfully and deliberately chosen to misinform its audiences on a continuous basis regarding current situation in Ethiopia. It says the government of Ethiopia has received credible information that CNN intends to misinform the world once again through a supposed report claiming genocide is taking place in the Tigray region. If ever there was a nefarious weaponization and deliberate misrepresentation of the world genocide, then it would have to be the Tigray genocide, a narrative so immorally constructed, it has said. Genocide was first and foremost debunked by the UN, OHCHR and EHRC joint investigation. While the sad state of war implies civilian casualties, Ethiopia has taken steps to minimize these, even at the cost of losing territory to the TPLF. Furthermore, there has not been any active combat or federal government presence in the Tigray region since June 2021. Rather, the TPLF has sent in fighters in human waves into the Afar and Amhara regions to undertake grave crimes against civilian populations, which begs the question where either said genocide against the people of Tigray taking place. Here lies the deception of some international media that portrays the aggressor as a victim, it said. In a seemingly coordinated propaganda ploy, mainstream media pick up the tidbits of information and run with it without confirming the sources or the evidence whatsoever. This sort of irresponsible journalism has unfortunately become the norm when it comes to reporting current events in Ethiopia and the Horn of Africa in general. At this point, it has become clear mainstream media has willfully and deliberately chosen to misinform its audiences on a continuous basis. It is unfortunate that such media outlets have not learned from the harrowing consequences of their misleading reporting in different parts of the world. The government of Ethiopia once again calls on all those engaged in such disinformation campaigns to refrain from these kinds of acts that are in one way or another harming millions, it is urged. In another development, Ethiopia has managed to make more cordial and friendly relations in the face of continued diplomatic pressures, that is according to the Government Communications Services. The State Minister for Government Communications Services, Kabeda Disasa, in a press briefing announced that various countries are showing solidarity with Ethiopia. The State Minister added that Ethiopia's participation at the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation held in Dakar, Senegal, brought diversified and strong diplomatic results. The coming of Wang Yi, Chinese Foreign Minister, to Ethiopia this week is also a great diplomatic achievement, showing to the whole world Ethiopia's peaceful situation, added the statement. He also said the #NoMo movement has been playing great roles in portraying Ethiopia's current situation.
Yina yibaro yasinai kodak temnegele yasinai ala tewayna rusas managura wadir kagahnu biso manaita koraka kwayna katuk manambida yalla kalim igdu manamina ninni marali habnu manambida akahabna nalino managima akahabna nalino managima yina yibaro yasina Madagana mai nedagana madina nedagana madina enindi dalhinna malayla besahinna kainna kabihinna amokobna awinna Gedembado, Gedenno, Aninado, Zulembodo, Zulenno, Aninado, Hadatabat Mahabana, Aninado, Aletarit Mahabana, Aninado, Adona Mokaleno, Aninado, Fulai Mysor Bisenno.
A flood of unsubstantiated reports by some media outlets about Ethiopia appears to be a manifestation of their lack of respect for the profession. Talking to ETV English, Melissa Odejene, a lecturer at Hawassa University, remarked that some broadcasters are being biased and unfair while covering things which are not on the ground in Ethiopia. Daniel Kassan reports.
Nowadays, Ethiopians are publicly voicing their dismay to foreign media outlets which broadcast against real situations of the country. Their slogans in demonstrations held across the world have strongly denounced them as they went on challenging coexistence and sovereignty of Ethiopia. In his discussion with ETV Language, Melissa Odejene, the scholar from Hawassa University, remarked, these days some broadcasters appeared biased and unfair on covering things which are not on the ground in Ethiopia.
Nowadays, we are being tested as a profession, and the media are really being put in test because they are not practicing the journalism proper.
Has it passed the litmus paper?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, we can actually discuss, this situation given from, given the Ethiopian situation now, how it is being covered, how things are entertained. Therefore, nowadays the media practice is not passing the litmus test of the profession.
Indicated some Western media outlets seem hijacked and broadcast against principles of the profession. In many cases, they don't even bother about seeing the realities on the ground coming into the country.
Here we should be clear when we say CNN, when we are blaming, Western media, we should not mix up, the people with the government. Okay. There are, politicians who have interest, by the way, that's my opinion, and the American public, if you take, the European public, may not have, the fact on the ground, and politicians have interest, and they want to set an agenda, and they need the media to prime that agenda and to propagate their views, irrespective of what is there on the ground as a fact.
Melissa also reflected on how some Western media outlets strongly expressed the determination of the Commander-in-Chief of the Ethiopian Army, present at the war front, trying to tarnish the image of the Prime Minister, who is a Nobel Peace Prize winner.
By the way, yes, Abiy Ahmed, as a Prime Minister, won the Nobel Prize for what he did for the peace of the Horn. It is for trying, to maintain peace in the Horn of Africa and for ending the deadlock between Eritrea and Ethiopia, the no peace context, as you know, and also his role for South Sudan and Somalia and other Horn affair issues. That was, the reason for the Nobel Prize. But this Nobel Prize winner, peace laureate, at the same time is a commander-in-chief of a sovereign country. And his sovereign country is attacked by a certain rebel group, which is defined as a terrorist group by the legislatures, the House of People's representatives of the country. Therefore, when the people peace and the people's survival is at stake, this commander-in-chief has to act and has to serve his public. This is one of the major activities of
the scholar suggests the Ethiopian media should act aggressively in order to share facts on the ground about Ethiopia so as to defend the image and unity of the country.
A proxy war waged against Ethiopia triggers the Pan-African Movement to revive. The hashtag No More movement, launched by Ethiopians and Friends of Ethiopia, is gaining momentum worldwide, allowing Ethiopians and Friends of Ethiopia to challenge foreign intervention. Goshmelis has more.
The West subjugated the continent of Africa not only to slavery, but also to exploitation of its resources under colonialism in the 19th century. They are now eyeing this continent with a new trend of neocolonialism under the guise of humanitarian and mediation to achieve their hidden agenda that was not successful in the colonialism period. Talking to Meet ABC, however, a historian says Pan-Africanism is reviving after the proxy war opened on Ethiopia by external forces.
Now there are brands are coming in now, at least voicing 1960s, at least with realizing with the current issues. And for one, at least I heard lots of his lectures is Patrice, Professor Patrice, and now he's championing the voice of Pan-Africanism. Yesterday we were forced to be slaves. But today we are willing to be slaves, but they are not accepting us. That's the paradox of life, you know. So we have to look for solutions. And solution comes through yourself. Nobody is going to give you any solution.
The hashtag No More movement launched by Ethiopians and Friends of Ethiopia is a true voice of Ethiopians with a clear message conveyed to interventionists.
The activities has started here, not only here in United States also, you know, Black Lives Matter is becoming a slogan. Now we're having our hashtag No More. These are the two coins that we're going to juggle for a time until we reach critical mass. It's a starting point now. Hashtag No More is becoming popular for whatever reason. It seems the time is ripe.
Ethiopia had cordial relationship with the US and some Western countries, but it seems strained due to their unfair meddling in its internal affairs, Ahmed noted.
With the pressure that we went through, it just became unnecessarily psychological proxy war. And now, without your wish, you start siding. As far as Ethiopia is concerned, to a certain extent, Ethiopia is neutral. Its diplomacy used to be sort of neutral, and it should be, because we cannot be free from neutrality. U.S. foreign policy, but at least for the last 30 years, it seems they became unipolar and became sort of assertive unnecessarily. That affects the balance of diplomacy of the world.
Ethiopia is not only battling the terrorist TPLF, but also the proxy war posed on Africans, it was learned.
Moving on, Lake Wonche is being recognized as the best tourist village of 2021. The recognition comes at the 24th General Assembly of the World Tourism Organization, which is being held in Madrid, Spain. Lake Wonche, located at southwest of Shoa, Oromia State, has been selected as the first of 170 tourist villages. The tourism sector becomes one of the government's top priorities. Community-based sustainable tourism development activities will be carried out in the sector, it was learned. And finally, China has promised to help African countries overcome the shock of the COVID-19 pandemic and the effects of global warming while refraining from imposing its will on Africa. Chinese Foreign Affairs Minister Wang Yi made the promise this week during the China-Africa Cooperation Forum. On Monday, Chinese President Xi Jinping promised Africa 1 billion doses of vaccines against COVID in the form of donations or support for local production to fill the vaccine gap. He announced that dozens of projects on the continent in the areas of health, but also digital or security, as well as debt cancellation and the relocation to African countries of $10 billion from the International Monetary Fund. In the final declaration of the forum, Beijing joins the demands of many African leaders, lifting of intellectual property rights on vaccinations against COVID that must be accessible to all, called to the UN to correct the historical injustices to African countries in terms of representation in the Security Council and relief of African aid. Before we go, a quick reminder of our top stories. Army charging forward to replicate victories to the central part. And some international media continue willfully misinforming audiences about Ethiopia. Well, that's it for the news from me, Solomon Danya, and the rest of the English team here in the studio. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.